Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for Monday, February 10th, 2025. Would you please stand as you are able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Jenny Snell,
Present.
Rachel Holteen,
Present.
Amanda Weaver,
Here.
Corey Stites,
Here.
Dan Larson,
Present.
Janice Hoppy,
Present.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you.
Leah Dozman, here.
That's okay. Counselors, in your package tonight, you have several minutes. We have study session notes from January 6th of 2025, City Council meeting minutes of January 13, 2025, and the City Council meeting minutes of January 27th of 2025. Are there any corrections to be noted in the minutes for the study session notes? Hearing none, we will let those stand approved with our thanks to the clerk. Are there any changes to be noted in the agenda? None noted. We will proceed with the agenda as published. We have no proclamations this evening, so we will go right into our public's right to speak. We're going to we have a special study session after the meeting, after the regular meeting tonight, so we will take any comment on the special study session items after we do our public's right to speak on the regular meeting items. This is an opportunity for the public to speak on any item that is not on the agenda tonight. You will be able to address the council for 3 minutes under public's right to speak, and I will call the speaker. When I call the speaker, would you please come to the podium and introduce us? Tell us whether you live or work in Wheat Ridge. And our first speaker tonight is Cody Hedges, and Kathleen Martell is on deck.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I'm Cody Hedges. I live here in Wheat Ridge over on Ingalls. That matters. So I'm here to talk about pedestrian infrastructure. It's something I'm passionate about. Specifically, I want to talk about what our guidelines here are. We follow PROWAG, at least that's my understanding. According to PROWAG, accessibility measured at 4 feet is a minimum for sidewalks. And yet in our city, a vast majority of our sidewalks are under 3 feet, which is your ADA compliance. Now, history causes that. That's how life is. However, we did pass a measure in 2023, 2J, by 40 points, 70% to 30% approximately. $40.8 million of that is supposed to go towards repairing existing sidewalks. Now, when Republic Works repairs sidewalks, I don't expect them to replace those 2.5-foot wide sidewalks that we have with 2.5-foot sidewalks that are still not compliant by accessibility standards. And so I had to ask myself, when we're replacing these, what am I expecting? So when I started seeing very freshly repaired sidewalks around District 1, which is where I live, I asked, why are these sidewalks being replaced in this way? So I called the DOJ, who oversees ADA compliance. Sounds kind of extreme. It's just, that's the department that you call. And they said it sounded like alteration to them. Now, whenever a sidewalk is altered, you're required to bring it up to ADA compliance standards. So I asked Public Works why we weren't doing that. And their response was because they don't have to. Technically, they're not altering sidewalks, they're maintaining sidewalks. So the line between alteration and maintenance is a vague one. And so they are correct that they are maintaining sidewalks, not altering them. However, FHWA guidelines do state that the replacement of short segments of sidewalk to repair surface irregularities is maintenance in nature. However, communities and states should strive to meet ADA standards on these types of projects to the extent possible, even with small sidewalk replacements. And yet, Public Works still chooses not to improve existing sidewalks to meet accessibility standards. So the question then becomes, is substandard really the standard we want to strive for here in Wheat Ridge? To me, when the public approved 2J to improve bike and pedestrian infrastructure by increasing funding to sidewalk repairs, do you think that that's what they had in mind? And is that what you had in mind when that passed? Because that's certainly not what I had in mind. And I hope certainly that's not what you had in mind either. So what I'm asking of council is to consider something. I'm asking city council to consider drafting and passing a resolution that states when a sidewalk does not meet accessibility standards per the city guidelines, then the city, and they are maintaining or altering, so altering or maintaining either of those, that those standards or those sidewalks are brought up to accessibility standards. Because as of right now, Public Works isn't doing something that's technically wrong, but to me, it doesn't seem certainly right. And I believe the city council is the body that can do that. I think that red light means I'm done talking, so I'll stop talking now, and for that resolution, I'll send it your way because I can draft it for you.
Okay.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I did fail to mention that we have some timing lights out here. You have 3 minutes to address the council, so the green light goes on. I think it goes on for about 2.5 minutes, and then the yellow light goes on, and then when the red light comes on, if you would please conclude your remarks. So our next speaker is Kathleen Martell, and we have Julie Pellegrin on deck.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Kathleen Martell. I do live in Wheat Ridge and volunteer in Wheat Ridge. Tonight, I'm here as chair of the Wheat Ridge Cultural Commission, and I look forward to being back in April to review the Cultural Commission's 2024 annual report with all of you. But tonight, I am here to invite Mayor, council, staff, and our community to an upcoming event that the Cultural Commission is putting on March 7th at the Wheat Ridge Center for Music and Arts. We are hosting a spring mixer and a Legacy Lutheran Hospital fundraiser. Last year, the Lutheran Foundation reached out to the Cultural Commission as the old hospital was being decommissioned and asked us if we would be interested in taking possession of artwork from the old hospital that was unclaimed or the original artist or donor could not be contacted. The commission saw this as a great opportunity to keep amazing art from potentially going to a landfill and also to keep it in our community and to also keep some of that history in our community. A portion of this artwork has already been donated to the city through Steve Art, and it is hanging in offices and conference rooms that previously had very bare, sad walls. So we've already started getting more art out into our community. The upcoming event is a free event, and it is a chance for folks to browse the collection, which is primarily Colorado and regional photography, and hopefully acquire a piece or two for your home or your office. Suggested donations will be posted, and all funds raised will directly support the Cultural Commission's Community Grant Program, where we provide reimbursement grants of up to $500 to creative ideas and programs here in Wheat Ridge. In addition to the art sale, folks can enjoy light refreshments sponsored by Mestizo Brew Cantina and the Wheelie Bean, and art activities hosted by Sweet Ridge Studios, all Wheat Ridge businesses. Details can be found about this event on the Cultural Commission's Facebook and Instagram accounts, hopefully tomorrow. And you may also reach out to us through the Cultural Commission page on the city website or directly to me if you have any questions. We really hope to have an amazing evening celebrating this art and furthering our opportunity to provide more funding and more grant opportunities to our community. I hope to see you all there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Julie Pellegrin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Julie Pellegrin, and I am a resident of Wheat Ridge, specifically of the Cambridge Park community that's located at 38th and Miller Street. I'm a member of the Cambridge Park HOA board, but I'm really just representing myself this evening. I'm here tonight to express my concerns about the creation of a traffic circle at the intersection of 38th and Miller. It's currently included in the proposed 38th Avenue West corridor improvement plans. As I understand it, one of the reasons for the circle is to slow down the traffic on 38th. I've lived in Cambridge Park for about 2.5 years now, and I've never had any difficulty pulling out into traffic. It doesn't move that quickly, and there isn't that much traffic. And as you may know, Cambridge Park is a gated community. And there have been times when cars get backed up waiting for the gate to open. Last year, we actually had a problem with the gate, and they were backed up out onto 38th and in the turn lane. So if there were a traffic circle at that intersection, a backup waiting for the gate to open could create some serious congestion and a potentially dangerous situation. In some, I think a traffic circle would be unnecessary and potentially create traffic congestion and driver confusion. I see you have the agenda item this evening to approve. You may wonder why is she talking about this tonight? I saw the agenda item about the increase in the budget for the final design costs and professional services for the 38th corridor project. I assume that means that the plans aren't finalized yet, and there will be opportunity to participate in the planning process during the coming year. I and many of my neighbors are already making plans to participate and voice our concerns as the process moves forward. So this evening, I don't really have a call to action for you, but I just wanted to go on record, let you know that we are talking about it and that we have concerns about it. And I look forward to engaging with the planning process and with you before you finally approve the 38th Avenue West Corridor Improvement Project. Thank you for your time and your service to Wheat Ridge. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one speaker joining us online tonight, and that would be Aaron Martin. Aaron, if you're able to hear us, would you please unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the council.
I am. I'm here. Thank you, City Council and Mr. Mayor. I'm here on behalf of myself. I have lived in Wheat Ridge for about 2 years. I live and work in Wheat Ridge, and I'm here today, unfortunately, for an issue that's affecting me and some of my neighbors on 34th Avenue. There's a house that has between 8 and 14 vehicles parked in their driveway and along the street at all times. They fill the driveway and then kind of the overflow goes out onto the street. And it's because they're running a business out of their driveway, repairing cars and flipping or body work, mechanical engine work. I've seen it all out there. There are visibility issues on the street. They park in front of neighbors' houses who can't, their children are dropped off for daycare or come home from daycare and they don't have a place to park. I've contacted the non-emergency line of the police and I haven't heard back, and I don't know what to do because anyone living next to 8 to 14 cars, it's a problem. Running a body shop in your driveway is a problem. And I would like to figure out what I can do if there's a statute on the books of how many cars a property can have, a rental property. It is being rented, by the way. The owner lives in Wheat Ridge, but is pretty unresponsive or doesn't understand the issue. So I have been trying to figure out a way to remedy the situation. I understand we need cars to get around, but I think a rental property should have less cars parked on it. So I come today to City Council. I wish I could be there in person, but to ask if there's something I can do, how I can remedy this, and if going through a police channel is the right way or if there's another way. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Are you able to give us an address on that property?
Yes, 7345 West 34th Avenue, 80033.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all of the members I have signed up to speak on our council agenda, citizens' right to speak. We have no one signed up to speak on the special study session items, so we will now go to our first agenda item. This is the consent agenda. Councilor Larson, would you please introduce the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. And tonight's consent agenda there are 7 items on the agenda. The first one, item 1A, a motion to cancel the March 10th, 2025 City Council meeting. Item number 1B, a motion awarding a contract to KECI Civil Incorporated in the amount of $191,029 with a contingency amount of $19,103 for a total approved amount of $210,132 to construct the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center Bridge Settlement Repair Project. Consent item 1C, A resolution number 08-2025, a resolution approving an amendment to the agreement with Mile High Flood District regarding the Clear Creek Master Drainage Way Plan update. Item 1D, a motion to approve purchase and installation of various equipment from Holman Upfitting Truck Services in a total amount not to exceed $190,000. Consent agenda item 1E, resolution number 09-2025, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Jefferson County Open Space to accept the Trails Partnership Program grant in the amount of $475,854 for concrete improvements and widening throughout segments of the Clear Creek Trail in Wheat Ridge. And consent agenda item 1F, resolution number 10-2025, a resolution amending the 2025 fiscal year general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $10,000 for the purpose of accepting and utilizing grant funds from the Jefferson County Open Space Foundation's Nature's Next Stewards Program. Mayor, I move that we approve consent.
One more.
Sorry.
I'll be right with you. This is our consent agenda. Mr. Larson, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve consent agenda items 1A through 1F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Snell, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is Council Bill 05-2025, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning disposition of lost, abandoned, and unclaimed property. At issue, the Colorado State Treasurer's Office has advised the city of a state statute governing unclaimed property. The statute referenced as is the Colorado Revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act, CRS 38-13-101. The act generally requires holders of unclaimed property, such as the city, to disperse unclaimed cash and cash instruments to the state treasurer. The city may exempt itself from the act, but only if it has adopted a local ordinance concerning the unclaimed property which conflicts with the act. This ordinance revises code sections to comply with the act while preserving the city's authority to dispose of unclaimed property. The ordinance simplifies the code sections on disposition of unclaimed property generally and property held by the police department.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. Councilor Snell, may I have a motion on this item?
Certainly. I move to approve Council Bill 05-2025, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning disposition of lost, abandoned, and unclaimed property. Order it published and public hearing set for 6:30 p.m. in the City Council chambers on February 24th, 2025, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication as provided by the charter.
We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Hulteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item number 3, a motion adopting the 2025 legislative agenda. At issue, the City of Wheat Ridge's 2025 legislative agenda will guide the city's advocacy on state-level policy decisions that could significantly impact the city. Developed in collaboration with the city's legislative committee, the agenda establishes clear positions on anticipated legislation for the 2025 Colorado legislative session. It serves both as a framework for the city's advocacy efforts and a resource for state legislators considering policies affecting Wheat Ridge.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
No further presentation. We discussed this a couple times in study session, but Cole is here this evening if you have any questions of him.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no members of the public signed up to speak on this item, so I will go to questions from council. Are there any questions of council that they want to have any information on? Okay, hearing none. Councilor Hulteen, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, I move to adopt the 2025 legislative agenda.
We have a motion and a second from Counselor Ohm. Is there any discussion on the motion? Counselor Hoppy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say that I appreciate everybody's work on putting this together. Our Counselor Larson, Counselor Hulteen, and the mayor representing us, and then the staff that worked with it. I also want to say thank you to Councilwoman Hulteen for this being her brainchild and bringing it to fruition. I think that's a really great road path for us to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Weaver?
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to thank the group of the mayor and Councilor Hulteen and Councilor Larson for their work towards this, and for any citizen. Okay, and for any citizen that would like more information on that legislative committee, there was a very robust presentation made last week at the study session that's really worthwhile to go check out. So thank you.
Counselor Hulteen?
I will keep it short, and I just want to thank Councilmember Larson and the mayor for stepping up. This is a intensive bunch of work because the legislative session is intensive. But there's a lot of decisions made under the dome that profoundly affect our city, both our ability to function as a staff and also on our citizens. So I'm really excited that this year we are stepping in to advocate for what's best for the city and really look forward to doing the work. And this work is actually year-round work because the legislative session ends the second week of May. There's a small breather, and then there's several committees that start meeting over the summer that shape the type of legislation that will be coming back next year. So this committee will step down its biweekly or by every other week meeting, and we'll be meeting monthly after that. But the session's only a couple months long, but this is year-round work, and I'm really excited to see how we can get under the dome and get better outcomes for our city. So thank you everyone for your work on this, and thank you Cody for making Cole for making us look good and making it easy.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Larson?
Thank you, Mayor. And just to kind of finish up our discussion, this being the evening while we are approving this very important responsibility of your city council. And the thing I want to emphasize are there looks like 7 or 8 items that we will sort of look through the lens of these items when we're considering legislation that is under the Capitol Dome. And very quickly, those are, the lens will kind of consider these issues. First off will be home rule, obviously, then community development, economic development, affordable housing, homelessness, public safety, infrastructure and transportation, sustainability, parks and recreation, and administrative services. That will be the way that these issues are considered, and we meet every 2 weeks, and we'll report back to council on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item before I ask for motion? Okay, thank you. Councilor Hulteen, may I have a motion on agenda item number 3?
Yes, I move to adopt the 2025 legislative agenda.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Ohm. Is there discussion on the motion? Well, we're discussing the motion. We just discussed the item, now we're discussing the motion. No discussion on the motion. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 4. Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Resolution 11-2025. This is a resolution amending the fiscal year 2025 2J Next Chapter Fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $1,911,963 for the purpose of issuing a contract for professional services to Ayers Associates, and approving subsequent payments for the 38th Avenue West Corridor Improvement Project. Would you like me to read the issue?
You know, I think we've got enough information there. Thank you.
Okay.
This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Yeah, I believe Maria will give a brief update on this.
Okay, Director DeAndrea.
Yes, thank you. Yes, staff is excited tonight to bring this next step forward in this exciting project. Specifically, we're looking to complete the final design, so this would prepare construction plans and specifications for the entire stretch of 38th Avenue from Youngfield Street to Kipling Street, as we've discussed in the past. So the study that we've undertaken over the last year or so has gotten us about 10 to 15% of the way in terms of plan completion. So to speak to the citizen who spoke earlier from Cambridge Park HOA, as we get further into final design, we'll be looking specifically at those comments about access into the Cambridge Park HOA, whether that makes sense to keep the roundabout there, move it slightly one way to the west or east. Really, the intent there is to place roundabouts at the existing signal at Parfait, as well as kind of bookend them on either end of the corridor to, again, slow traffic, as that was one of the comments that came out quite clearly from our public engagement process through that study. So this is the next step in that process, and this will design a one-lane road in each direction with sidewalks for the entire length, as well as on-street bike lanes, and then various lighting amenities, crosswalks, and the roundabouts, as I mentioned previously. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I go to questions from council, I typically would invite the public to speak, but the only member of the public that signed up to speak has spoken. So we'll go to questions from council. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you. So while I realize we're talking about the budget, just to reflect the question that was asked earlier, I know that at one point we had another person come in and talk about the location of the possible roundabout on Miller, and there was a conversation about possibly moving it, and I just was curious. Thank you, Ms. Pellegrin, for coming in and mentioning it. Would you just speak to that? And certainly I realize that the plan is not finalized and to all of the things that were discussed, but just that is an issue that we have heard about, and just your thoughts on it. Thank you.
Certainly, yes. Thank you, Councilmember Weaver. Yeah, so again, the intent of adding the roundabouts or traffic circles, both at Parfait, we would remove the existing signal, and then one towards the western end of the corridor, and then another one at the eastern end, is really to slow traffic as you progress between Youngfield and Kipling. So the exact location at Miller is not necessarily specific. I think it was selected as just a potential location. So we will look as we get into final design. We're only about 15% of the way in, so this contract will complete the entire design. We'll look more specifically at that and respond to those comments from the neighbors about the access in and out of Cambridge Park.
Great.
And whether or not it makes sense, or if there will be traffic issues or not, and we'll respond directly to them and include them in those conversations.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is for staff. So for I saw something, a line item that said design around existing trees. Are those existing trees cottonwoods and or Colorado blue spruce evergreen? And then the third question is, are those evergreens planted on the south side of the road?
I don't know, Councilmember Ohm, if we've done an exact tree inventory of the types of trees. I will have to get back to you on that. Okay. I think our intent is to save as many of the trees as possible. So that doesn't mean that we'll be able to save them all with the adding those amenities with the bike lanes. The roadway will be widened as well as adding sidewalks. But our intent is to try and not do this very straight roadway that just kind of goes and takes things out, but maybe is a little bit curvilinear so that we can avoid some of those trees where possible. But I'll have to get back to you on the exact species and locations.
Thank you. And then the last question I have is, has staff ever made calls in the past to add extra de-icers in areas where evergreens are shading sidewalks in the city and, in streets? I
don't know if trees specifically, but certainly very tall buildings that are on the south side of the road will shade the roadway, and we continuously deal with icing situations. We're dealing with that right now up on 52nd Avenue, where we just constructed, but we have very tall townhomes that are shading 52nd Avenue. So what we do is we just, our plow drivers know those locations and tend to go back and add more de-icing agent where needed in those locations.
Do we currently have a ban on planting evergreens on the south side of sidewalks and roads?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But I have to check with our community development regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director DeAndre, can you just speak a little bit to what the public outreach is going to look like for the planning? We do a lot of these types of efforts, and so I just was hoping that you could tell the public what they can expect and when they can expect to be able to come and give comment.
Certainly. Yes, so through the study process, we did 3 public meetings where we invited adjacent neighbors and property owners and businesses to attend that. We also did some block by block sections, and so we'll be doing something very similar, probably 2 meetings though, as opposed to 3, where we'll present more of the finalized plans so we can get feedback from the public on those. And then 1 to probably lay out more of like the construction timeframes and how access would occur, where you put your garbage cans, that sort of thing, more logistics, that sort of, as we move towards construction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm always excited to see this moving forward. When would we expect to see some of this come back to us here on the dais?
Certainly. So we're right in the midst right now of finalizing the results of the study. We'll be bringing those back to you on March 3rd. So this contract's a little bit ahead of that, but we want to wrap up all of the public engagement, come to our final recommendations, and present those to City Council. We did present to you back in the spring of this year to kind of finalize the study results, but within the next few weeks here, we'll be back in front of you. And this design process will take about a year.
Okay. And to the question that was just asked about outreach, I know that our previous consultants have done a really good job reaching communities that don't always typically engage in planning processes. And are you working specifically with this contractor or this consultant to make sure that they are doing outreach into some of the harder to reach neighborhoods and where we don't typically see like high turnout, to make sure that the meetings are planned so they're accessible and easy for everyone on that corridor to participate?
Yes, so the consultant themselves have their same public engagement staff that was used in the study phase, as well as our own Let's Talk staff is involved as well. So Ashley Holland has been a part of this process and will continue to be as we finalize the design.
Great. And then I just want to give a second to Councilor Ohm's point about spruces and large evergreens on the south side of the street. I actually have it on my property. I've got 2 blue spruces that are on the north side of my house, but on the south side of the street. And the frontage in front of my street is iced usually for 2 to 3 days longer than anywhere else on my block. So I am the problem. My trees, my beloved trees are the problem. So it's an excellent point, Councilor Ohm.
Next man coming. Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And this first question has to do with the funding for this. The money that we're looking to move into this project budget, is that additional funding, or because I understand that roundabout project on 26th has been delayed, so will some of this sort of net out on the cost of this project?
Yeah, it's I would say yes to the roundabout, but we know that that's coming in the next hopefully year or so. This is more of a timing issue. So in our 5 to 7 year time frame or plan that we had for the 2J funds, we did have this money budgeted and planned, just not in 2025. So the charter requires us to actually move the money from an hour year into the 2025 budget and allocate it such in this manner. So we were planning to start this process a little bit later, and starting in 2026, but we want to take advantage of the work that's been done to date. and working with Ayers and Associates who did the study themselves and capitalizing on their knowledge and start to move the final design forward sooner rather than in a year or so.
Yeah, okay, appreciate that. And to follow up, the stakeholder engagements, their schedule looks like beginning this month and running through the middle of July. Does that sound about right in terms of stakeholder engagement? Great. And the actual construction costs and the costs of acquiring the is the cost of acquiring the right-of-ways and easements, is that included in this, or is that separate? Okay. And then finally, this plan involves a series of report backs where the contractor will report back to the city at 30%, 60%, and 90% of their progress. But it does not look, it looks like we'll get an opinion on what the actual cost of construction will be starting sometime, I believe, in April. And then periodically after that, we will, it looks like we'll get a final, sort of more or less final, give or take a couple $100,000 by about October. Does that sound correct?
Yes, so the deliverable at each of those stages, the 30, 60, and 90% is a set of plans. That's 30% complete, 60% complete, and then a cost estimate to go with that. So as they refine the design, their cost estimate gets more refined. Usually that starts with a larger contingency, which hopefully goes down as we get closer, and they're able to triangulate in on a much closer to a final cost.
So then at this point, we are not able to say that in 2026 we'll be spending X.
Not at this time. Our current estimate is anywhere from 18 to 20 million for construction. And so we're hoping to lower that. So that is relatively conservative, but we'll go through that process, and then we'll work more closely internally to determine if we have those available construction funds or if we may need to phase the project in some fashion.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you again, Mayor. I just wanted to address, this does not address all of the things that you had talked about, Mr. Hedges, but obviously this project has a lot of sidewalk involved with it. And one of the things that we've been trying to do as a city, and I'll ask Director DeAndrea to speak to this, is just how you prioritize fixing all of the sidewalk issues that we have in the city, because I certainly hear the issue of making everything ADA compliant, and I have a feeling the city wants to do that. And we also are trying to balance this prioritization of not having enough money to do everything that we want to do. And I was just hoping, Director DeAndrea, if you could just speak to how sidewalks sort of fit into a project like this versus decisions, as we've all been talking up here on the dais, of spreading that 2J money out to fix other sidewalk issues.
Certainly. Yeah, so we've, as a group, have had a lot of discussion about maintenance of our existing infrastructure while we're also hoping to build new facilities. So any of our new facilities will certainly be designed and constructed to meet all ADA requirements. In this particular case, we will also attempt to retrofit as much of the existing sidewalk that we're hoping to retain to meet ADA guidelines as well. In the case of existing sidewalks, where they're too narrow, we do every year, we update a number or upgrade a number of our pedestrian ramps to meet current ADA guidelines, but the sidewalk width, the sidewalk grades don't necessarily meet that. So that might mean doing blocks at a time where we're widening from, it's 36 inches now out to the 48 inches, taking potentially another foot of right-of-way to accommodate that, doing all of that negotiation and acquisition with property owners, and then the construction costs. So we feel staff feels, again, that this is a maintenance activity of maintaining our existing sidewalks, and until such time as we would go in and do a major rehabilitation of the streets, such as we're doing now on 38th Avenue, that would be the time that would trigger the upgrade to upgrade all of the sidewalks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. Director DeAndrea, can you remind me, you said it just a few minutes ago, roundabouts, Parfit, and will you remind me of the others?
I think the one on the west end, if I recall correctly, I don't have the drawing in front of me. I believe it was like a Tabor court.
Okay.
And then at Miller Street or Court as it goes into Cambridge. It's a T intersection there at Miller.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm excited to see this launch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Counselor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director DeAndrea, can you, every year we budget, we have a separate line item budget for our ADA compliance of our sidewalks, and we're working through that. We've been working through that for the very long time that I've been here. And I know that sometimes we try to piggyback that onto some projects, and so I'm just wondering, is any of the, of this budget, are we piggybacking onto any of our ADA budget for that, or we're going to do this project and we don't have to utilize our ADA budget for anything in this project? It'll be utilized throughout the city.
That's correct. So there's the separate funds, or they may still come from 2J, but we have separate our budgeted amounts for our annual ADA compliance, for our annual sidewalk repairs that are separate from the funds for this project. Correct.
Counselor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this bombardment of questions, for answering them. I see in the packet that we're trying to preserve and reuse as much of the existing infrastructure, and it does include the drainage outfall system plan. Will the study that come before us include pricing around potentially undergrounding any wires, or some of those storm and drainage improvements, like if we're going to have to replace, repair, is it going to take into consideration all of that?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the current construction costs estimate includes all of the needed stormwater work. It does not include undergrounding the overhead power lines, but I will have that cost and present that to council when I come back on March 3rd. So that would be in addition to the construction costs. But yes, all the stormwater is included and is planned to be designed as part of this contract as well.
Thank you. Counselor Hulteen.
Thank you. Ms. DeAndrea just answered my question about undergrounding, so I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Are there any more questions before I ask for a motion on this item? Seeing none, Counselor Weaver, may I have a motion on agenda item number 4?
You may, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 11-2025, amending the fiscal year 2025 2J Next Chapter Fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $1,911,963 for the purpose of issuing a contract for professional services to Ayers Associates and approving subsequent payments for the 38th Avenue West Corridor Improvement Project.
We have a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Counselor Rome.
Yes, I just have one ask that if staff could ask the Ayers Associates just to, not a study per se, but just to, in the wintertime, it'd be best to go out there after a snowfall and see how it's kind of melting. And perhaps it won't be an issue. I had an issue in my neighborhood where different circumstances where we have a curb, it's the slope curb. They had a large Colorado blue spruce tree, and it got to the point where there's probably 4 to 6 inches of ice over top of the sidewalk, and calling Patrick and saying, we got a problem. It was just too much for the owner. And eventually the owner decided to just cut the spruce tree down, which really alleviated the problem, but it's an attached sidewalk. I'm assuming that this is probably a detached sidewalk, which would have less issues, but I just want to make sure that we have accessible sidewalks that we don't have long-term maintenance problems with. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would, after reviewing the the project design plan. I was very impressed with its comprehensive nature and how thorough it is. And I look forward to periodically having a look at the progress this has made, and then when we're all back here in January of next year to approve moving forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we will go to agenda item number 5. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A motion approving a construction agreement with JOC Contracting LLC in the amount of $898,000, $911.56 for Tabor Lake Trail improvements. At issue, planning and design work associated with the Tabor Lake Trail project has reached completion. JOC Contracting LLC was selected through Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing to complete the construction phase of this project. This project will create a connection to the Clear Creek Trail from 44th Avenue through Van Gordon Street. Formalizing the existing trail adjacent to Tabor Lake will provide a wider, safer, ADA accessible path to the Clear Creek Trail and will enhance birding experiences by adding a bird blind and lake overview shelter.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, sounds like we might have a presentation on this item. We
Yes.
do? Yes, we do. Okay, Director O'Donnell.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. We're here this evening to approve the construction agreement with JOC Contracting LLC, but I wanted to provide you with just a project summary and an update because it's been a while since we've talked about this project with you all. I wanted to mention that Mark Root, our Parks Project Coordinator and the project manager for both this project and the next item that we'll be talking about, is here to answer any technical questions that you might have. And if you don't know Mark, he is one of the amazing employees in our department that works behind the scenes to make these projects come to fruition. And he's been with us since 1984, is that correct? And will be retiring at the end of this year if we let him. So just wanted to point that out. And then, of course, our manager of Parks, Forestry, and Open Space, Benny Hayes, is here as well. The Tabor Lake project has changed a bit since we initially started planning. As you may recall, we were originally hoping to construct a trail all the way around Tabor Lake, but we quickly learned once we were working with architects and engineers, the steep grade and erosion concerns would make safely constructing a trail on the west side both difficult and extremely costly. Plus, many residents brought up concerns with the impacts to the bird habitat if we were to create a trail on the west side. So to give you some information about this specific project, this trail is a 2,465-foot, 6-foot wide, stabilized crushed granite walking path with a connection to the Clear Creek Trail. There's 108 feet of 6-foot tall welded wire fence with 2 gates for no public access on the west side of the lake. So this replaces the chain link, the old chain link damaged fence that's there currently. People have cut through over time, and it will be more stout and safe for park users. There is 200 feet of 6-foot tall chain link fencing to separate private and city property on the northeast corner of the lake. 370 linear feet of wood, 2-rail estate fencing located on the west and northeast areas of the lake. Approximately 1,400 square feet of concrete slab for lake viewing shelter. A 16-foot by 20-foot shelter with a metal roof and solar-powered lighting with 2 picnic tables. A 10-foot by 7-foot bird blind with a seating bench placed on the south edge of the lake to view the lake and the bird island. 900 square feet of concrete slab for the bird viewing blind and a concrete path bird blind access. 4 benches and 11 seating boulders placed for optimal lake viewing. 4 trash receptacles, a lake maintenance boat ramp on the southeast corner of the lake. A formal Van Gordon Street parking area for 6 vehicles, including 1 ADA parking space. The entirety of the trail and trail access will be ADA compliant. We will have ADA trail and bird viewing signage along the trail. And this project has included public survey and input. Both, you may recall, the School of Mines did some work related to this project and did some public outreach in 2022. And then Design Concepts, who's our architect for this project, did some additional community engagement and surveying in 2024. This project also includes survey, geotechnical, permitting, maintenance agreements with the Lee and Baugh Ditch and private property owners, floodplain compliance, stormwater management plan, which is a requirement from the state of Colorado for erosion control and water quality. And then this project has a bit of a unique timeline, as we have discussed before. From April 1st to October 31st, we cannot work in the Lee and Baugh Ditch easement inside the existing fence on Van Gordon, the north section and half of the east section. So work will be concentrated on the Van Gordon Street and the southeast corner of the lake and the bird blind during that time frame. And then from November 1st to March 30th, work will be concentrated on all Lee and Baugh easement sections. This work will be sensitive to the existing bird population during nesting season, which is May through August. And then just also a reminder about this project is that we received 2 grants for this, for the Tabor Lake project, $451,260 from the Land Water Conservation Fund and $410,000 from the Jefferson County Open Space Trails Partnership Program. And that is all. If you have any questions, the diagram is in your packet, but also available for those here in person and online.
Thank you very much. We would invite the public to speak on this item at this time. No one has signed up to speak, so I'll go to questions from council. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really exciting. One question I had is on it's going to be on the west side. Is there an existing social trail right now? Right there?
There is and isn't. There shouldn't be, but people
Yeah.
have cut holes in the fence, as I mentioned before. So people do wander through there. It's not particularly safe.
And that kind of, yeah, I kind of get that. And so you said was it the far, like I'm looking at the diagram where it says 1.5, was it on that map? You can see that the sheet.
Oh, what is the 1.5?
L 1.5 sheet is what it's referring to. That area is the end,
Do
the
you
very
know
end
what
of that trail.
It's hard to see. I need my, oh, that's not going to be helpful. It's very small, this part.
It's like the
What
over.
is that? Oh, that's, oh, sorry, I was looking at 1.6. Apparently I can't see. That's the,
Yeah, that's the lake
pavilion.
viewing, small shelter, and picnic table area.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
And so could the workforce housing, they could hop on this trail, they'd have to go east and then south to get to the Clear Creek Trail? Is that possible still?
yes. There's access up in that, from like the old Howard Johnson area. They just can't go west because there is not a trail there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you. This is super exciting. I was just curious, how do you keep people, or do you, from getting on small boats and paddle boards and stuff like that? Or is that allowed? And then my second part of that question is there anything living in the lake itself? Like, are there fish? Are there, like, yeah, I think so. But just kind of curious, I know all of the uses that I see at Sloan's, or not at Sloan's, but at Crown Hill and of course in the Clear Creek system. Just what do you anticipate the usage being, or is that a no?
So we do allow non-motorized boats during certain timeframes that don't impact the bird population there. I don't know that we've ever had to remove people that were there when they weren't supposed to be, but if we did, I'm sure.
The paddle boarders are quite a group of people. It's like
Yeah,
pickleball
for sure.
on water.
We don't get a lot there, but in terms of what's living in there, I would refer to Benny. You can hop on this microphone. It doesn't matter.
Thank you, Council. Good question. We just had a meeting with CPW on Friday, and there's largemouth bass and saugeye. They just stocked it with saugeye last year. So there's a big number of different kinds of fish: bluegill, sunfish, saugeye. channel catfish, largemouth bass. I think I covered them all.
Will people fish? Could they, would they?
It's currently open to fishing under CPW regulations.
Huh.
And the boating starts September 15th, I believe, and through the winter months. But if we do get paddle boarders there, because there are a lot of paddle boarders that like to utilize the lakes, we push them towards Prospect because that's open throughout the summer.
Right, great, thank you. Maybe I'll start fishing.
Okay. Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. First, a fairly basic question. Who owns Tabor Lake?
I believe we own, I don't know, actually. I should
When
know
I
this,
went on
but
the
I don't know.
county assessor's website, there's no description. And it, nothing to do with us.
I don't officially know.
Mark might be able to come with a little history on that.
The years here were pretty spotty on some information, but that was purchased from a Coors deal back in the early 80s. So that was originally Coors, Brandon, Santa Gravel. Then it went to Coors, and then the city acquired it. We had survey done, and everything except for a very, very small 30 square feet is all on city property. And we got a maintenance agreement with that adjacent property owner to do the trail.
Can you tell us whether the lake is spring fed or is the water source is surface water?
I believe it's linked with Bass Lake through underground, just seepage. CPW kind of covered that on Friday, and there was no pinpoint on exactly how that's fed. I know the water quality is better in West and Bass, and they think that's because those are spring fed, and then it trickles down to Tabor.
So Tabor's kind of at the end of the line. Yeah, okay. And then we're, some really nice amenities. I think the idea of a bird blind on the southern edge, it just makes a lot of sense because every time I walk through there, the birds look at me and I look back at the birds, but I would like to be able to hide and watch them so they don't, they don't know anybody's seeing. So that makes it just a very logical location for that. The question I have though is on the spec sheet, both the bird blind and the picnic shelter have solar lighting. Why would you need lighting on a bird blind?
It gets very dark in bird blinds. Same thing with the shelter, especially when the sun goes down. But yeah, there's no power there, so it has to be solar.
But we're not really encouraging people to picnic at night, right?
Yeah.
I think even during the day, those shelters get really dark. So it's probably mainly for safety. Because they're fairly enclosed. Yeah.
Okay. It's an amenity that, yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't gone through the details yet, but we're going to want a timer on that light just so it can shut off and stuff.
And then, one last question. The sheet says that there has been contact and consultations with the landowners. Tell us a little bit about what you recall from your interactions with the people, especially the ones on Tabor.
Do you want to answer that one, Mark? I believe it was just one landowner, right?
The one homeowner that we have dealt with is the husband and wife that own the property that we're going to be on small square footage of, and they've been very applicable to us doing the work and work with us to get that maintenance agreement.
And this idea that with the increased foot traffic near those houses on Tabor, there is a fence along this west side of Tabor Street that's planned, right?
Yes. Yes.
What kind of a fence? Chain link or?
You're talking all the way along Tabor?
Along Tabor to all the way up, yeah.
That one's going to be the chain link. And then the estate's going to be on the south.
There'll be a state fence on the west and the northeast corner, especially along the lake where the state fence will be used to kind of delineate between the edge of the slope and the trail.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just looking on a map of that southwest corner and with that slope there and the fact you have buildings within a few feet of the property line. A bit of a concern, but I guess that's why there's no, that the trail doesn't come all the way down along the west side.
Unfortunately, that bank is just too unstable
Yeah.
to put the trail. I mean, we would like that as well, but it's just too unstable.
Right. And it's not like you could acquire a right of way because there's no right of way. Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to the watercraft / CPW discussion, was there any concern about having a washing station? There are several lakes in our area, greater Denver area, that require your watercraft, whether it's paddleboard or canoe or whatever, to, rinse them off before getting in because of the invasive, I think they're mussels or.
The zebra mussels,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we limit it to no power boats, because that's where a lot of the mussels would like to stay. But yeah, no, with the regulation of just hand powered, you don't need to have that inspection.
You don't. Okay, got it. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you so much. This is really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hulteen.
Thank you. I understand why, but I am disappointed it's not going around the whole lake. I know how much people enjoy going in the little loops that we have. So to that end, there is a social trail that exists where we are now not putting a trail. Are we taking measures to keep people from using that social trail, or will that be accessible?
The chain link that's going up on that side is a lot more stout than what's currently there.
Okay.
And that's the reason why we went with the beefier fence.
Okay, great. And then, Ms. O'Donnell, you mentioned 2 different grants that were going towards this. Are either of those federal grants that may be subjected to the on and off again federal funding freezes we're hearing about?
Perhaps the land water, definitely not Jefferson County Open Space, the Land Water Conservation Fund. I believe it's Colorado, passing through a federal, but I think it's Colorado. I'm honestly more concerned about some of our transportation grants for other projects than this one.
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
USDA.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Counselor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there's been a maintenance agreement that's been mentioned. Will that move with the property, or how will that work if somebody else were to move into that space? Will that agreement continue, or?
That's a great question. We would have to loop in Mr. Dahl on that action, because it is just an agreement with the current homeowners. So I don't think that would necessarily carry over. It's something, there are a few different options that we could do. We could purchase the property, but they were happy to just create a maintenance agreement and keep it pretty simple. But if they were to move, we'd have to work with the new homeowner to come up with a different agreement.
Thank you. Director O'Donnell, I had a question on Sourcewell, which is a cooperative purchasing agreement. Can you just speak for a couple of minutes on how that works?
That is, and City Manager Goff might know better than I would, but it's through our procurement operations in the city. There's an opportunity to use Sourcewell, which is a cooperative agreement throughout the state, I believe, for a variety of different opportunities, whether it's construction or architecture services or anything like that, where we don't have to do a formal bid process, because all of these organizations have already gone through the state process. Is that a fair, pre-qualified? Thank you.
That's very good, yep. Yeah, it allows us to piggyback on somebody else's professional bidding process. So we don't have to do one on our own. We do this quite often.
Okay, so this is a competitive.
It was a competitive process. We didn't have to do our own though. We joined with another competitive process.
And they organize a competitive bid process.
Yep.
And the selected contractor was the successful.
Exactly.
bidder on it. Thank you. Are there any further questions before I ask for a motion? Well, hearing none. Counselor Dozeman, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve a construction agreement with JOC Contracting LLC in the amount of $898,911.56 for Tabor Lake Trail improvements.
We have a motion and a second by Counselor Ohm. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we will go to agenda item number 6. Please, Counselor Hoppy, may I have a introduction on this item?
This is a motion approving a construction agreement with the Colorado Designscapes in the amount of $1,211,000 for the Panorama Tennis Courts project. At issue, planning and design work associated with the Panorama Tennis Courts project has reached completion. Colorado Designscapes was selected through a competitive procurement process to complete the construction phase of this project. The existing tennis and basketball courts at Panorama Park have reached the end of their useful lifespan and need replacement. Court subsurfacing is in poor condition along with cracking on the play surface, making them unsafe and beyond normal maintenance repair.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. This is another project we've been working on for quite some time, so we wanted to make sure we give you a quick update on this.
Thank you. Yeah, as you know, the tennis courts are original to the park and have reached their useful life of over 50 years. So this project includes 4 tennis courts and 1 basketball court, all post-tension concrete construction. The tennis courts and usage zone around the courts have been upsized and designed to meet USTA, which is the United States Tennis Association guidelines. 4 tennis nets, a 10-foot tall chain link fencing around the tennis court, 2 basketball poles, a backboard, and hoops, drainage system for the tennis and basketball courts, ADA compliant sidewalks for all court accessibility, ADA compliant parking for all court accessibility, LED court lighting, which you all know, the lighting has come a long way, so it's really nice in residential neighborhoods to not impact those neighbors anymore. Both courts will be lighted. New lighting systems will include controls to have the system come on at dusk or early morning. Set run times will be determined by the city of Wheat Ridge. Push button control turns lights on for 60 minutes. Warning lights will flash 5 minutes before the lights shut off. There is a 12-foot by 32-foot shelter with a metal roof, including 3 picnic tables, 4 seating benches, 2 trash receptacles, irrigation system renovation, and landscaping improvements, including 8 new trees. This project includes design by the Architera Group, survey, geotechnical soils testing, and as previously mentioned, USTA, the U.S. Tennis Association, input for project design for potential grant funding. So we are seeking up to $140,000 in grant funding if successful. And that turnaround period's pretty quick, so we should know likely in March if we receive that funding. There are some constraints with that funding, is that the courts cannot be lined for pickleball if they are funded by USTA. And that's actually fine because best practice doesn't recommend pickleball in residential areas. Like, for example, Denver follows a rule to not have pickleball within 500 feet of residential areas, and we have homes within 120 feet of those courts, so we wouldn't recommend pickleball in that area anyway. So this would have a 30 to 40 plus year lifespan on post-tension concrete slabs, and Mark has generously given me a definition of what that means. A post-tension concrete slab has cables in the slab that are in conduit. The cable is tensioned after the slab is poured. This puts the slab in stress by tensioning. This makes the concrete much less susceptible to cracking over its lifespan, which makes for a longer life court surface. This post-tension concrete court will also require much less maintenance to maintain a playable surface over its lifespan. We talked to the contractor about a preliminary schedule if this is passed this evening, and the team hopes to get started with submittals by the end of the month, with material procurement in early March and completion in September. So with any luck, we can get these courts completed this year. Any questions?
Before I go to questions from council, this is when we invite the public to speak on this item. No one has signed up to speak, so we will go to questions from council. Other questions on agenda item number 6? Mr. Stites. Oh, Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really excited about this. This is our closest park. In a previous life, I was quite a tennis nerd. I can't tell, probably because my eyes are bad. Is there a potential, or is there a backboard going into the actual tennis court area?
I'll let the project manager.
As of right now, not included in the design, but it can still be added if need to be.
Thank you. Those are sometimes helpful, just for no other reason, just to get frustration out and get a good workout. But yeah, this is very exciting. Really, really excited for this project. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And just you answered my question about pickleball. I appreciate that. What will the surface of the court be? Will it just concrete, or will it be some sort of coating?
It'll be a typical petroleum-based coating put on every tennis courts. If you're familiar with the new courts, pickleball courts at Prospect, it'll look just like that, because that's a post-tension court with the lines all painted, just like Panorama will be eventually.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rome.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a couple questions. One is, it looks like on the south side that everything's draining from south to north. How did they address the drainage? I'm just talking, and I know, like, I've been out there on site when I first got elected. I got the tour, and you could tell, like, it appeared that the surface water was generally going from south to north, and that may have been causing some issues. And I can't read that on the bottom there. There's something down there. I can't tell if that's a landscape edger or something, or if that's a drain pipe or.
The south is a drainage pan that'll catch water off the hill, force it away from the courts, and pull it around the east side, and it'll drain into a small retaining area. The court is got slope to encourage drainage off the court, and that'll move water all the way to the north side. And eventual, when 35th is redone, it'll be able to enter into a storm drain. That's for a later project.
And then my other question is I can't tell by this. I don't have it in my packet, but it looks like maybe the shelter's on the north side. Is that true? You said something about a shelter.
Yeah, I don't have the exact measurement, but there's a 12 by 32 shelter with 3 picnic tables, one of those being ADA compliant on the north side.
Yeah, and does that, is there potential for that to have power? And when I mean power, like something that you could turn off, like, sometimes somebody wants to come there and they want to plug something in during the daytime, and that the city can flip the switch and say, yeah, you can plug in whatever, if it's a bouncy castle or something. But if we're starting something new, if that's something we could.
It could be designed. It's not in the project now, but that's something that could definitely be added.
Or at the very least, if there's just no way to, that's reasonable right now for the power, we could at least sleeve it or something.
Yeah, there's the power source is actually very close to the pavilion anyway, so it won't be a long run, but that could definitely be added.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. Will the existing parking area for the courts be changed in any way, renovated or enlarged or moved? Or
the parking on 35th will stay as is. The parking off of Depew will be altered to meet ADA compliance, and there'll be 1 to 2 ADA parking spots on the east side off of Depew. It'll still accommodate the same amount of cars, but it'll be compliant.
Okay.
Which it is not now.
Thank you. Sure. Are there any other questions, Councilor Hulteen?
Thank you, Mayor. Your question, do we have any bike parking that is near the tennis courts?
not included, but it could be.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. There's a lot of great ways to ride your bike to that park, and riding your bike to play tennis sounds fantastic in the summer.
There's a couple places where we could definitely add bike racks.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions before I ask for motion on this item? Okay. Seeing none, Councilor Hoppy, may I have a motion on agenda item number 6?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve a construction agreement with Colorado Designscapes in the amount of $1,211,000 for the Panorama Tennis Courts project.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Snell from District 1. Thank you. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Ohm.
Yeah, I just want to big thank you to the city. When I first got a tour and I looked at in the current condition, it looks pretty bad. It's, this is going to be really great for the community. Something else we can add to our city. So really looking forward to it. It's got a basketball court. So really appreciate staff's effort and the consultants on getting this done. So can't wait for the ribbon cutting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for getting this done. My husband enjoys playing tennis there, but I would also kind of put a little a vote in also for like a backboard. I have some lacrosse players in my family, and it's really hard to find a flat wall where you can go and play wall ball and practice your lacrosse. So that's one of the places that they used to go to.
Any further discussion on the motion? And hearing none, but I also want to put a word in for a backboard, because I was a tennis player in my younger years, and it's something that you can do by yourself and gives you a lot of exercise and good practice. So anyway, if there's no more discussion on the motion, would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda items. We will now go to city managers matters. Mr. Gott.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a special study session this evening, so I will hold any comments to a future meeting.
Okay, we're not doing those now?
I have no comments this evening.
You have no comments?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. City attorneys matters, and I understand Mr. Dahl is joining us online. Mr. Dahl, are you here?
I am here, and I don't have anything to add. I'm interested in obviously attending also the study session.
Well,
so I'll stand by.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. Here is sort of a figurative term in these,
yes,
these days. All right, we will go to elected officials matters, and let's start with Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one thing to share with everyone. This Friday, which is Valentine's Day, an option for you if you are looking for something that's different. Wheat Ridge's own Sweet Ridge Studios is offering a Valentine's date night craft evening. It's held at Sweet Ridge Studios headquarters at the Wheat Ridge Center for Music and Arts. It's a candle making class. Should be really fun, something kind of out of the ordinary for Valentine's. Not necessary for just a traditional date if you just want to bring a friend. There is also childcare provided, so that's another bonus. And with that, I think that's all I've got for this evening.
Okay, thank you. And I failed to mention earlier, but we've had a little program change in our agenda. When we have a special study session that follows a meeting, we're going to handle elected officials matters at the meeting and not after the study session. So we'll do it now. With that, I'll go to Councilor Hulteen.
Wow, pressure's on.
Well, pressure's always on.
Yeah, pressure's always on. Thank you, Mayor. I have two things. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Hedges for coming and advocating for building the best sidewalks in the city. And as was mentioned earlier, it is definitely something to strive towards. I was actually surprised to find out when I was on council that Wheat Ridge actually considers itself responsible for the maintenance of sidewalks. Several of our neighboring communities do not undertake those repairs. Denver had to pass a ballot initiative to actually come up with the funding to serve their sidewalks. So I do believe, and Director DeAndrea actually has left. I was going to ask her for some clarification, but I do believe on our primary pedestrian corridors, we are meeting those standards. But within the neighborhoods, we run into right-of-way and issues. So I appreciate the advocacy, and it's definitely something that we should strive towards. We are spreading the 2J peanut butter really, really thin. But please continue to come in and call things like this to our attention, because there's oftentimes places where that type of request, we can actually like focus on the best application for it. And I think that I will follow up with Director DeAndrea and see if we are using that that use of PROAG in our maintenance on our principal pedestrian corridors, which are identified in our bike ped master plan. So I appreciate that, and I will follow up, and I have your email. So the second thing, I put in a request through the city's tree program, because I have a couple trees on my property that need a little attention. And I just want to thank our city forester, stopped by my house this morning and was extraordinarily informative and helpful across many trees. But one of the things he mentioned to me is that the Ips invasion, which affects spruce trees, has really taken out a lot of trees at the Crown Hill Cemetery / Arboretum. And he highly recommended the 3 gigantic, very healthy spruce trees on my property to get those inoculated and serviced ASAP, because there are a lot of spruce trees going down from the Ips invasion. So just want to make mention here, if you have spruce trees, please call a licensed and certified arborist and have them come take a look at your tree and have it serviced so you don't lose it to Ips. Unless it's on the south side of the street, and then maybe it's not such a bad thing. So anyway, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of items I want. First, I want to acknowledge our newest staff media star, Maria. She's been on television 3 times in the past week. First, she gave a very good interview to CBS 4 Denver, that was last week, on the use of technology to evaluate every street in the city and develop the grading system that we discussed here at council a few weeks back. This is an equitable approach to fixing roads, and it looks at all of our streets. And there was even a comment from a resident that's called this a good decision across the board, data-driven approach to street maintenance. That followed that up a couple days later with Fox 31 interviewed Maria to talk about the design of our the Wheat Ridge participation in design of the Wadsworth continuous flow intersections, and a very, very good job of explaining how continuous flow intersections work and how they will make traffic move smoother. The other thing was that if you listen to KUVO radio in last Tuesday, the Wheat Ridge High School Jazz Band they played a wonderful version of this song. Can't get enough. And if you're interested, you can go on to YouTube and then look for KUVO, and then the Wheat Ridge High School Jazz Band is listed right up toward the top. You can hear the entire hour-long performance, and it will absolutely just knock your socks off. It's just a wonderful, wonderful performance. On Thursday, I attended an online hearing for the Public Utilities Commission regarding Excel's wildfire mitigation efforts. And commenting on the Super Bowl, fair to middling, maybe the commercials were just average, I thought. And then finally, I will talk about, no, I won't. I'll let the ribbon cutting discussion with the Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also going to say that Wheat Ridge was in the news, and we're combating congestion with those CFIs, even though they're well into the designs and we've been talking about them for years. They're just getting noticed, and I agree, Director DeAndrea, gave great interviews and reasoning behind why we're implementing that design. And I really want to thank the Parks and Rec Department. We've seen a lot of grants approved over the last several years to improve our parks and to keep them maintained, and it really shows. And I love that my family and I can walk along the Greenbelt or from any one of the homes of family members in Wheat Ridge and get to a park that we really enjoy and love. So I appreciate all of the hard work, and I'm really excited about the Tabor Lake improvement, although I would never paddleboard there or at Prospect, I don't think. Maybe fish, but that's a little iffy too. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Weaver. Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you. So I understand that next Monday, City Hall is closed, correct?
Closed for President's Day.
Right. And so I wanted to bring up for everybody that we're going to have a city plan open house on Thursday, February 20th, from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Wheat Ridge Rec Center. So everybody, please make sure you can do that. And a big thank you to all my neighbors that were able to shovel their sidewalks and make things easy and accessible for everybody. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hoppy.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a Wheat Ridge Education Coalition meeting last week. I wanted to remind everybody on March 6th, Everett Middle School is doing their International Night. That's from 5:30 to 7:30. I wanted to commend both Amanda Harrison and Alex because I too keep seeing Wheat Ridge and the Makerspace and everything on TV constantly. So great job to our communications team. They're doing a phenomenal job. As Councilor Dozman just reminded me, the rec center is turning 25, and I saw that in the Wheat Ridge Living magazine, and some great pictures of the Parks and Rec staff. So great job on that. And I attended a couple ribbon cuttings the other day with Councilor Larson and the mayor. One was the Works, be a phenomenal addition to District 3 and the Gold's Market. Pretty phenomenal bowling alley if you guys have never been to the old Paramount Lanes there, but food looked fantastic. And then Colorado Hots over by Everett Middle School, fantastic food. I believe they had a recent write-up in the Denver Post. So awesome. And if you can find it, you should find it and buy it at Wheat Ridge. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, most of my thunder's already been stolen, but I have a couple of things here that I want to go to. I want to thank the members of the public that come in and talk to us at our meetings every time we have an opportunity. We really enjoy listening to you. We want to hear your concerns and hear your suggestions on how we can make this the best city that it is, which it's really doing a great job, I think, now. As the Mayor Pro Tem noted, we're going to celebrate our 25th anniversary of the Wheat Ridge Rec Center. What a terrific project and facility that is, and we are going to have a celebration I've got here from about 9 to 2. Director O'Donnell, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right to me, yes.
At the Wheat Ridge Rec Center. We hope that you will all come by and help us celebrate this facility. Its first 25 years, sort of the first quarter or less of its lifetime. So I also want to recognize that Jeffcom 911 is opening a new facility in Golden on February 20th. We got together with the county and other municipalities in Jefferson, Colorado, Jefferson County, and have common communications for public safety officials through Jeffcom 911, and it's been a really successful venture. We've got a great new facility. We're really excited about that. The Mayor Pro Tem stole my thunder on our ribbon cuttings, but those are really great places to visit. The Works at 26th and Kipling and Colorado Hots, both great places. We want to welcome those entrepreneurs into our community. We will not be here next week because it is President's Day. So we will see you the following week for, I suppose, another meeting,
Regular meeting?
regular
Yes.
meeting of the
Minds.
City Council. So if there's no more, we're going to adjourn this meeting in a minute here and go into a special study session. If there any other more business to come before us tonight, then we will stand adjourned. We will take just a couple of minutes break, and then we'll go into our study session. Thank you. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the special study session for the City Council for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for February 10th, 2025. We have one study session, one item on our study session, which is the Legacy Metropolitan District Number 1 through 12 Service Plan. We have already invited the public to speak on this study session item. There has been no speakers on this, so Mr. Goff, I will turn the mic to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I will quickly introduce this and introduce our guest here. But as we prepare for the redevelopment of the Lutheran Legacy Campus, you can probably imagine that there's going to be quite a bit of infrastructure improvements that are going to be required. Actually, they've estimated at this point about $100 million of infrastructure improvements that are going to be required to make this development happen. The current owner of the property, Intermountain Health, is still the owner. They are applying to the city. They've submitted a draft service plan for the creation of a metropolitan district. Metropolitan district is basically a financing. One of the primary parts of a metro district is to provide financing for public improvements and for the ownership and maintenance of those long term. Creation of metropolitan districts are directed through state statute, so there's certain rules that must be followed. One of the big ones is the submission of a service plan to the city for approval. And that's why we are here this evening. Megan Murphy is here with White Bear. I won't say the full name of your law firm. You may have seen Megan before. Megan works for a law firm that has provided assistance for several metro districts in Wheat Ridge. So I will just leave it at that and turn it over to Megan. She has a presentation. Mr. Dahl is also online to help with the discussion and answer any questions. Megan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council folks. I will keep it brief, so let me know if I'm going too fast. I'm here on behalf of my client, Intermountain Health, the property owner of the Legacy Lutheran Campus, and a service plan. We're hoping to have a public hearing on February 24th, so this is our opportunity to hear from you, answer questions, make edits as necessary. And as Mr. Goff said, White Bear Ankley, Tanaka and Waldron also serves as general counsel to Hance Ranch Metropolitan District, and we call it Ward Todd, but you might know it as the Ridge at Ward Station, 2 other metropolitan districts within the city of Wheat Ridge. So here's some items we're going to be talking about today. This presentation is based on discussions with Mr. Goff, Mr. Dahl, and things they thought you might be interested in, but if we've missed the mark, please let me know so we can make edits before the public hearing. Okay, by way of background, the Lutheran Legacy Campus is what we're calling the project. The name of the proposed districts is Legacy Metropolitan Districts 1 through 12. The service plan doesn't include approvals of anything else, so this isn't about zoning, this isn't about density, it's just about the service plan. This is a proposed boundary map of the area. So the initial idea, since we're so early in development, is to have what I'll call 6 larger districts. I hope you can see those numbers perhaps in your packet or on the map. And then there's 12 small director's parcels right above the word Dudley Street. There's a little white box. Those are districts that are sitting on the shelf, so to speak, so that as development changes over time, we have flexibility to increase or decrease the boundaries to match that. You'll notice the lines between District 3 and 4 are a really good guess about where the ditch is, but that might change. So there might be multiple multifamily users within the boundaries of District 3 such that we want to further subdivide that. And as a reminder, the reason we want to subdivide districts is because everybody in the same district has to pay the same tax rate. Sometimes that doesn't work for multifamily compared to single family for sale product. Sorry, are you guys seeing this?
Yes, I'm seeing it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Better? Okay, great. So I want to stop here and let you know that this is one idea that my client would like to start with, but this is by no means
the final answer. So you'll notice District 6 and District 5 are existing buildings that plan to stay existing buildings. So that's why they're in their own district. And I wanted to hear from council while I had you this evening about what you thought about this proposed map. Or happy to answer questions. And maybe I'll go one more slide to explain the director's parcels, and that might invite more questions. So let me go one more slide and I'll come right back. I hope.
Freeze.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you, sir. Okay, so what is a director district? Why would you do it? This is an example map of a project in Aurora. It has 20 director districts. This is a very big project. As you can see, we only know the first wave of development. That's the very odd shaped green. Then a second wave of development came on. That's the little green or yellow area on the far left side of the map. So this is a project where we're using director districts. We haven't have everything platted. We don't have a plan. So they sit on the shelf. Then once we do have a plan, they come off the shelf. They include an area of property being developed and the taxes are imposed. Does everyone understand that concept? And then I'll go back to the other map and welcome your thoughts and comments on what we're proposing here.
Megan, if I might, you might want to articulate to the council that we've heard about the director districts and understand that, but you might articulate to them sort of the thinking at the moment, at least, underlying the larger districts and those boundaries, sort of where they are and why. To enable questions from council, I think it'd be helpful for them to know that.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Of course. So what we think is districts 5 and 6 are going to remain the buildings you can kind of see underneath. Those are existing medical facilities. We think District 1 will be for sale residential, kind of flanks a project on both sides. Districts 3 and 4, we think will be multifamily residential. So those users have different sensitivities to tax rates compared to single family for sale. And then District 2, I believe
That's more than likely civic uses.
Civic uses.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Okay, we have a few questions here. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And when I had originally looked at the map, I had assumed that the reason why District 1 was basically our buffer zone and why that was in District 1. But my question for District 3 and District 4 is, do we think that there will be any anticipation of, while it is allowed to be multifamily, there are different levels of multifamily, and will any of those potentially be for sale products, or do we think that those are going to be mostly for rent products, or do we not know yet because we're not the actual developer?
I don't know yet. My client Intermountain Health doesn't know yet. And that's the reason for the extra districts, so to speak, is that if, let's say, half of District 3 would be for sale and half would be for rent, those two different developers might have different sensitivities to mill levies. So we'd like the flexibility to split them up. Now, if that doesn't happen and all of District 3 is one developer that doesn't have those sensitivities, then it can all remain in District 3 as shown in this proposed map.
And I have just two other quick questions. Of the director parcels, the 6 of them, 7 through 12, if the situation that you just mentioned happens in like all of District 3, then would those be retired, those districts 7 through 12? Would those be retired director parcels? Would they just be absorbed into District 3 and no longer exist as District 7, 8, 9?
Yeah, they can go through a dissolution process, which is a formal process with the district court if they're not needed. Most clients choose to simply leave them as that very tiny area shown on the map, and they aren't used, and then many, many moons from now, the project phases out and the districts just sit there and never become active.
Great. And then my last question is, Lutheran is not going to be the master developer of this property in the end. And so my question is, why is Lutheran coming to do the Metro District rather than the master developer who will eventually end up owning this property? Is this the typical process? Or is it something that they wanted to do so that it would help them with the sale of the property?
To the extent I can answer that question, given client confidentiality, this is an added entitlement on the property that my client has asked us to seek from City Council at this stage in development.
Right, and then you guys would continue to be the management company regardless of where ownership ends up on this property then?
Oh, we always hope so, but we understand clients have a choice at services and that can change at any time. So I've been with Hance Ranch since its inception, but they could of course change legal counsel at any time. Same with Ward. That happens and that's life.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Weaver.
Thank you. Could you, first of all, I just want to go back to one of the issues from last week, that none of these districts include any current homes outside of this district, correct? Like there is no metro district that's going to cross over into other people. Mr. Goff, could you just speak to that?
Yes,
as
that
far
is
as
correct.
The letter that went out and.
Yeah, there was a little bit confusion, unfortunately. As I mentioned earlier, state statute does require that the most adjacent neighborhoods are notified of a service plan. And I think there was about 80 residential properties notified. But we asked Megan and her firm to send out a follow-up letter to those same properties to explain that they don't need to do anything. They don't have to opt out or opt in. Their property will not be part of the district. Their property will not be taxed. It's just notification that's required by state statute.
Okay, so just to clarify, we are not talking about any existing homes that are in Wheat Ridge right now that will be part of these districts. This is all stuff
Correct.
that will be encumbered in future.
This will
home
only
housing.
impact future property owners within this district
Okay.
boundary.
Thank you. My other question was, could you repeat to me, so I'm understanding that like the city plan and things that we've been discussing, District 1 is single family-ish, lower density. What is 5 and 6?
5 and 6 are existing medical buildings that plan to stay those medical buildings. So we do not know at this time how much they'll participate in the underlying infrastructure. They'll certainly have some participation, right? Because the boulevard that goes through the project will touch, they'll benefit from adjacent right-of-way landscaping, but it's unknown their exact participation. So they've been put aside so that there's flexibility to make that determination at a later date.
Understood. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And my question has to do with the discussion that, and I understand their estimates, but there is the number that was included in this the document puts the mill levy at 67 for the special district. And then when you look up what the county sister has mill levies for the existing property, and that's 87.6 mill for the existing property, do they combine or are they somehow factored down or net down or something?
Yeah, if I may go further in the presentation, it talks about that. Would that be all right with you?
Fine, yes, thank you.
I had one more question before you start. Councilor Dozeman.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. It's okay, because I just wanted to expand on Councilmember Hoppy's question, because she asked it to Lutheran, but for staff, like, is this a general sequence of events in a project of this nature, where it's the property owner, like the former property owner and not would-be developer that comes in?
Yeah, I've only experienced probably 4 creations of metro districts, and they've all been a little bit different. They're always in somewhat of a rush because, again, they want to get these established before development starts, because it does provide a revenue source. And I'm not sure if I've experienced one where the current property owner who's selling is the applicant, but as Megan mentioned, this does provide another entitlement clearance for the future property owner, so it does provide more value to the property. So it's not, it's happened before, but Wheat Ridge only has about 4 metro districts at this time, so I don't know if it's ever happened in Wheat Ridge this way.
Okay, and so a follow-up question for that, would that mean that each of these parcels could be, or districts could be sold to separate developers, or is the intention to have it be developed all by one property?
That's kind of 2 separate tracks. The metro district is formation of districts. This map that was up here that you see, it does mirror somewhat the conceptual plan that's being presented to the city for how it will potentially develop. The potential new owner is the master developer, horizontal developer, so they will prepare the land for development, and they will sell off individual parcels to future developers.
Okay, so is this just another way to incentivize?
Yes.
Okay, infrastructure improvements.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Murphy, continue on your presentation.
Okay, thank you for asking that question about the mill levy. So the current mill levy on the property is 87.691 mills. I just guesstimated a home value of $600,000. That's, just a value. So that property would pay right now $3,500 in property taxes. Assuming the metro districts are approved, the additional 67 mills would generate approximately additional $2,700 in property taxes, bringing the total mill rate to approximately 150 mills. And that matches other metropolitan districts within the city of Wheat Ridge. So Hance Ranch has 60 mills for debt adjusted from January 1st, 2018. Ridge at Ward Station, Ward Todd also has 60 mills adjusted from 2018. After discussion with Mr. Dahl, your legal counsel, he asked us to take the 60 mills adjusted from 2018 and bring it forward. So that's why you see 67 mills adjusted from January 1st, 2025. When I'm referring to that adjustment language, that's changes in the residential assessment ratio that happen over time. So as you may remember, we used to be something like 12%. Over the last 20 years, we've gone down to 6.7%. So as the residential assessment ratio drops, the district's mill levies go up to remain revenue neutral. So this makes this project market competitive with other metropolitan districts in the city of Wheat Ridge. Just to give you a little broader context, the town of Parker starts at 75 mills. So I wouldn't say you're out of step with places. 67 is certainly high, and I'm not trying to look you in the face and say it's not, but it's not the highest, and it matches what other communities in your city are doing.
Great, thank you.
So this slide reviews what kind of the key financial terms are that we're talking about. As Mr. Goff mentioned, it's approximately 100 million in public improvements. We're asking for a debt limit of 110 million. As a reminder, that's the ceiling. So whatever 67 mills based on the market value of the homes generates, that's what it generates. The financing plan included in the service plan shows approximately $83 million in proceeds. Katie Cooksey from Piper Sandler is here to answer any financial questions you might have about that service plan model. You can see that the property owner, master developer, whoever ends up building this infrastructure will pay for a significant portion. So if it costs 100 million, you only get 83 million in property taxes. There's a delta there that won't be covered by the metropolitan districts that the developer will have to pay. Okay to go on? Mr. Dahl said you might have some questions about what's a new concept called a special improvement district. This is a tool that's been used in Utah quite a bit and is now making its way over to Colorado. The Hance Ranch and Ward Todd service plans do not include these provisions, so I wanted to make sure to bring these to your attention and have that discussion with you. The idea is that instead of pledging property tax revenue or pledging fees, you take an assessment lien and place it on an individual lot. And then that lien has to be paid off before any end users own the property. So this, I just want to reiterate, this in no way can be put on an end user that would buy a home, buy an apartment, buy a condo, anything like that. This is a different way to finance debt upfront as opposed to a construction loan. It's allowed under Title 32, but it's only allowed if it's in the service plan and in the election questions. So now is the time for the property owner to make this request of you, and it is a relatively new concept. So I'll do one more slide on that and then stop for questions. As a reminder, what I just said, assessments cannot be imposed or collected from an end user. That means regular folks. That means there'll be basically a way for a master developer to issue debt that's paid off by national home builders that come into the project, pay off the assessment as they want to get COs for lots. Happy to answer questions about that concept.
Questions on SID? So this is an option that we would be asked to approve or disapprove in the service plan?
Yes, Mayor. So it's included in the service plan. The only way you can have an SID under Title 32 is either get it in your original service plan or come back to the city council and get it approved via resolution. And then outside of that process, we also have a Tabor election to authorize it. So instead of coming back to you to ask for this, it's included in the service plan.
Is there questions about this? Okay, continue.
I want to be sure to highlight our efforts to disclose metropolitan districts to future residents. I know we can always be doing more and better because sometimes people are surprised about us, but we are trying to be out there. So we're recorded on title. We're required to have websites. Under new Colorado law, we're required to mail a notice to each registered elector every 2 years saying, hey, you live in a district. Would you like to be on the board? Here's how you can do it. Here's the paper you need to turn in. Despite these best efforts, we are not getting as much public engagement as we would like across the metro area. Some projects have a lot, some projects have little, but I just wanted to assure the council that we're doing everything we can to let folks know you're going to be in a district. Here's what the mill levy is. Under your specific model service plan, we're required to provide a notice to the city for Mr. Dahl to review. Once he says it's okay, it's recorded on title and then provided by the home builders to future buyers.
Councilor Hoppy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you said it's the home builders, then once it's recorded on title, it's the home builder's responsibility to inform people who are buying homes in these areas that there is a special district or a metro district involved. And so my question is there something that, is there a specific requirement that we could require home builders to do, like have an asterisk on their flyers, or like, is there a specific requirement that we could add into the plan to have future developers have to be very transparent about it?
Yeah, if I may. The city of Thornton requires that this disclosure be printed on separately colored paper and prominently posted in the sales trailers. So like a pink poster or orange. That's one idea. Since I was before you last time, the law has changed under Title 38, which is private real estate law, to require the home builders to calculate the property taxes for each home based on the value of that exact home. So I come to you and say 600,000. They must figure out exactly the price of that home, show the buyer the calculation of the taxes, and have them sign that as part of their purchase and sale contract. That's not me as the metro district. That's a home builder requirement. But the printed colored paper is probably the closest thing that we as the district can do. There's a challenging dynamic there where the district isn't in the business of selling homes, but wants people to know about us. So we have a website, we do mailings, we post on SDA's website, and we require the home builders to provide it. And then we hope they do under their Title 38 obligations and purchase and sale contracts.
Mr. Goff, would that be something we would have to put in our code, or would that be something that we could put into?
We could
This-
add the, to the disclosure, I think, section of the service plan, some more specific language on some more requirements. We could, if this comes back, if you ask us to bring this back to public hearing, we'll bring some additional language on disclosures.
Thank you.
What are the voting requirements or the voting opportunities in the Metro District? How are they allocated?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So metro districts are required to have elections every 2 years. So May of 25, May of 27, May of 29, on and on and on. In order to vote in a metropolitan district, you must be registered to vote in the state of Colorado. You can either live within the boundaries of the district or own property. When I say own property, I mean you need to own it as Megan Murphy, not ABC LLC or such and such corporation. So as soon as people move in and they're registered to vote, they're eligible electors. What sometimes happens is we're not having an election. So you might move in May of 26 and the next election is in May of 27. So that'll be their first opportunity to vote. And that's all set by state statute.
And is every single property owner have one vote, or do you have one vote per parcel of property that you have in there? In other words, the developer, as he's selling units or selling parcels of property, does he have 100% ownership and voting rights, and then as he sells one, he has 99, and then he to one other property owner, or is owning property?
No, owning property by itself is not sufficient. So it's one person, one vote. So if the developer owned a home in developer's name, I'll just use my name as Megan Murphy, I would get one vote, but I might own 100 lots and I only get one vote because I'm one person. So it's unlike an HOA. There's no unit count allocation or stacking of votes. That's not permitted.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions? How is the board of directors of the special district formed?
So you heard me talk about residents and you're driven by the site and probably thought, well, there's nobody living there, like we just talked about. So under that concept, there's a provision in Title 32 that allows a property owner to put folks under a contract to purchase. It's called an option contract. And the developer, the property owner at the time, will place up to 5 people under an option to purchase, and they'll be the initial board of directors. They'll serve until such time as there are other eligible electors within the project. And then those eligible electors, as you can see, will quickly be able to outvote them. So once you have 6 people move in, there'll be 6 residents compared to 5 developer representatives. Most developer representatives don't want to get in any disagreements with folks they're trying to sell homes to, so they simply step aside. I know there are stories in Metro District land of folks not doing that or there being contentious elections. I haven't personally experienced that in my practice, but I'm aware that it's out there.
Thank you. Additional questions? Councilor Hulteen?
Thank you, Mayor. So what happens if somebody doesn't pay what they owe the Metro District?
It'd be the same as if they didn't pay any of their property taxes. So the county is authorized to proceed with a foreclosure action after a certain period of time. The Metro District doesn't do foreclosure ourselves. We just sit in the same position as other tax entities and seek repayment when the time comes.
Great, thank you.
Does the Metro District receive and disperse tax proceeds similar to what we would be familiar with if we didn't live in a district? So there's going to be, school taxes, city taxes, those types of things.
Yes, in that relationship, we're exactly like the city. So we pay the county treasurer a 1.5% collection fee, and then everything else generated from the mill levy is remitted to the Metro District's general fund or debt service fund, as the case may be.
And then the Metro District remits those to the other tax receiving authorities, if you will, the fire department and the city and
County does
and
that
county?
still. County still does that.
Okay, so so the county will levy all their regular tax schedule, and then the Metro District will pick up essentially what's outside of that. And
We just get our portion just like the city. So if I'm a homeowner in this district, I pay my tax bill, and then the county says, here's a little bit to the city, a little bit to the fire district, a little bit to the Metro District, just like the city gets. And for that service, we all pay a little collection fee
a
to the county
collection fee
treasurer.
to the
Yes.
county to collect the taxes and then distribute them under the proper mill levy.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions? Okay, continue.
Here are the proposed findings that you're required to make under statute in order to approve the service plan. Sufficient existing and projected need, as you can see from the aerials and familiar with the project, there is no services being provided on the site. In speaking with city planning, there is not a plan for the city to provide services to the site, so the Metro Districts will be responsible for what you would call private roads because they're not owned by the city, but what we call public roads because they're owned by just a different governmental entity, the Metro District. So that's all the snow removal, landscape maintenance, asphalt installation, all of everything you can think of that goes with roads. The existing service in the area is inadequate. There's no entity that's coming, knocking on my client's door saying, boy, we'd love to help you redevelop this project and here's how. So they're proposing creating some Metro Districts. The districts are capable of providing economic and sufficient service within the proposed boundaries. As you can see in the financing plan included with the service plan, they are projected to be able to pay off their debt based on the middle of the road density values that's authorized for the area. And I know you'll have a lot of conversations that I won't be part of about what is authorized for the area, what can be developed, types of housing, etc. So we've just assumed middle of the road for that. And the area within the district can discharge its proposed indebtedness on a reasonable schedule. And that's the 40 years that's standard for metropolitan districts across the state and also for other districts within your city. I hope that was speedy. I'm here to answer questions.
Will the Metro District utilize any existing assets on the current property as long as they're available and able to be used? Water, sewer, sanitary, those types of assets?
Yes, it's my understanding that there's some well water available for the site that will be incorporated. And then the existing, let me just go back to the map. The existing services in districts 5 and 6 are going to remain there for some time. So it's not as if our plan is to bulldoze those existing buildings and then make new buildings that are just the same. So when it's appropriate, that's the plan.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Dozeman?
Thank you. So I think this is probably geared more towards staff, but if we see the dissolution of a Metro District, does the city of Wheat Ridge have to cover the maintenance, so snow removal or?
No, it'll
services?
still be private property. I don't know if Megan or Mr. Dahl, did you hear that question? If the Metro District dissolves, it'll be still private property. The city won't take over those assets unless we. Dahl, Jerry, you have any?
That's correct. You know, it's private property, and this is a private financing arrangement for what we think of, the city typically thinks of and does maintain as public improvements. But in approving a Metro District, the city is not establishing a fallback. In other words, approving the Metro District does not by itself or does not include within it any kind of provision for wealth. The Metro District did dissolve for some reason. It's not able to levy the money. The city will step in. There's no obligation to do that. Just as there is an obligation for the city to step in on other private facilities that occasionally go unmaintained over periods of time. Megan perhaps can add to it, but in terms of the obligation of the city, it's private property, and we don't have obligations with respect to private property unless the city affirmatively assumes them. And in approving Metro District, we're not affirmatively assuming that fallback role.
And if I may add, state statute requires there to be a plan for dissolution, and that plan has to be consented to by the municipality. So if the districts were to dissolve, they would have to come to you and say, we've made a plan for all of this maintenance, And then you at that time could say, we agree with this plan and you can move forward. If the municipality doesn't consent to the dissolution, the only other way to do it is through district court, and that would require the voters within the districts to seek dissolution. And then the judge would be the decider of whether their plan's appropriate. So the districts cannot just walk away and say, no, thanks, we don't want these streets anymore.
Thank you. Counselor Snell.
Thank you. To Councilor Dozeman's point, District 2 is being reserved for civic use. Do the services then apply to District 2? Like snow removal, water, all of that good
I think
stuff?
that's still under discussion. It depends on how that builds out and who the owners are. If the city becomes the owners, that's why we're kind of carving that out separately. Those decisions haven't been made yet.
Additional questions? Continue.
That's the end of my presentation.
Oh, okay. Then that puts us in another one. Okay, so any final questions or continuing questions that you have for Ms. Murphy? Okay. I guess we're looking to see this plan come back to us.
Yeah, we're just looking for consensus this evening to bring this back to February 24th for a public hearing.
Okay. Counselor Snell. Oh, we're reaching consensus to move it back for a public hearing on February 24th in City Council chambers at 6:30.
Correct.
And online.
Correct.
We did that earlier in the day.
Thank you, Mayor, council folks. See you in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Goff, do you have anything else to come before us tonight?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, we will stand adjourned. Happy President's Day in a week. And remember to please take care of your loved ones. Valentine's Day is coming up, and love is certainly one of the greatest things that happens in our world. So take care of the people that you love. Thank you.